Okay. So are we using the mic?
You can use this as well.
Okay.
This is going to pick you up, but this will at least.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get started. We are running a few minutes after 6 p.m. We want to make sure that we are respectful of everybody's time. We did try to give us a little extra time in case somebody might have been running late. But let's go ahead and get started. My name is Tracy Cantu. I am the Assistant Director of Neighborhood Services, and I want to welcome you to our public needs hearing. That we're going to be holding these hearings in each one of our council districts, and these are needs assessment meetings. And so what we're doing is listening to your input, your feedback to establish the next 5-year consolidated plan priorities for the city for the upcoming 2024 year, and to discuss the HUD allocations and how those funds will go out. And so this year, we want to discuss that the city received the Community Development Block Grant, about $2.6 million for the CDBG. The Home Investment Partnership Program received $1.3 million. And the Emergency Solutions Grant, or ESG, received $235,549. And so these needs assessment meetings are a requirement of HUD to gain citizen participation and to get local, to establish our local participation plan, our local citizen participation plan. And so we want to make sure that you understand we do value your input and feedback, because this is important as we work on this plan. And so, Bill, still, we practiced this before the meeting, and I'm still not having a good time with Bill's last name, but we have Bill with M&L Associates, and he will be facilitating the meeting. But before we get started, I wanted just to cover a few housekeeping items pertaining to our room and the facility here at the McDonald Library. So our bathrooms are going to be straight ahead through the doors, the double doors here, and all the way at the end of the hallway. So if you need facilities, that's where they're located. In this meeting, we will ask, when you provide your input or feedback, you will have to come up to the podium. It's just due to the acoustics in the room, the mics, you're going to get that feedback. So we will have you come up to provide your feedback for us as well. And so we do ask you, obviously, to be courteous and try to keep side conversations to a minimum. Again, the acoustics in this room, that sound is carrying, and it's going to interfere with the equipment. Okay, so just please be courteous. So we're asking that. You'll also have an opportunity to email the Neighborhood Services Department with your feedback, and you can do so to Leticia Kenmore. She is our program manager for grant monitoring. Her email address is Leticia K, which is LETICIA, the letter K, at cctexas.com. CC Texas, Texas is spelled out. So Leticia K at cctexas.com. We'll also have this information up during the presentation as well. But please feel free. You can contact me and Leticia. We have several staff members, so you can ask anyone for their contact information if you'd like to provide it that way. So at this time, I want to introduce Councilmember Campos. She is here. She is our District 2 representative, and would like to see if she'd make some opening remarks before we get started.
Thank you, Tracy. Well, thank you, Tracy. Well, welcome to the Ben McDonald Library. I fondly remember it as the Greenwood Library, and I still call it the Greenwood Library. Anyway, welcome. It's a little disappointing that we don't have as many people as I'd like to have, but hopefully maybe they can still continue, on the other sessions. I also wanted to let you know that I'm making plans to have quarterly meetings for our District 2 residents. And the next one that's coming up is going to be on April the 20th at the Linville Senior Center. And it's going to be, just kind of like a friendly chat, just you finding out what the city is doing, what programs are being offered, especially like something like this. But and at the coming summer, what's coming up. And as far as this program is concerned, I just came from the city council meeting and I'm learning quite a bit. And Tracy is right about the conversations. I can tell you that at the city council meetings, people are talking, some of the members are talking to one another, and it is very rude, I'm going to say. And also, you can't hear what people are actually saying. So thank you, Tracy, for mentioning that. And I just want to say also, welcome to this meeting. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to some great input. I see some wonderful people. Judy, John, I know you've always got some good ideas. Teresa, of course, Eli. I think I know the whole room now. Eli, Mari, Hannah, Elvira, I'm sorry to get your name. Sonia. So some people that I didn't mention, I've got my card here. Teresa, I had mentioned you. All right. So anyway, it's going to be an intimate session, I think, right? All right. Take it away, Tracy.
All right, well, thank you very much. So I'm going to give this a shot. So I'm going to introduce Bill Wazaleski. Did I get it right, Bill?
Very good. Excellent.
All right. So Bill's going to lead us through the presentation, and then we'll start our comment and input following the presentation. All right, so take it away, Bill.
Thank you so much, Tracy. And first off, I want to thank everyone for attending tonight's meeting. Really appreciate you coming out to provide comment. So just one other housekeeping item, just so folks know, this meeting is being recorded so that we can go back internally and listen to the comments, make sure we get everything right. And the other thing I wanted to introduce is my colleague on the phone or on the call here is Maya Smiley. She's with M&L, so she's not just dropping in. She's here to help me make sure we get every comment exactly right. So just to give you an overview of the evening, I'm going to present to you a PowerPoint presentation here shortly that'll kind of outline the agenda for this evening. But really, it should only be about a 10-minute presentation on the general overview of the programs, the priorities in the actual CDBG home and ESG programs. But really, we want to reserve the most amount of time for you all to be able to provide comment to help, again, inform the city's drafting of the priorities for the next 5-year consolidated plan. So if you bear with me here, I'm going to try to share my screen. So can everybody see that? I can't see, so can everyone see that? I'm going to assume everyone can see that. So again, as I said, you can all see this? Okay. So just I said, this is the second meeting to get input on the consolidated plan for fiscal year 2023 through 2027, as well as get input on the fiscal year 2024 program year 2023 annual action plan for the community development block grant, home, and ESG program. So just as, again, a little review of the agenda. So I'm going to present just an overview shortly here of the 5-year HUD consolidated plan and the planning process. I'm going to discuss, just so you have an idea of what the city's current 5-year CP priorities are in terms of fiscal year 2018 through 2022. And then we're going to also discuss and outline how the city used its fiscal year 2023 funds. And then just so you can get a context for providing input on the priorities and use of funds moving forward, you can just see how the city has budgeted funds and priorities over the last 5 years. And then I'm just going to kind of do a brief overview of CDBG home and ESG basics, just so we have a context for these programs, what are the eligible uses under these programs, what are the ineligible uses, that sort of thing. And then again, we're going to reserve the majority of the time for your input on the new 5-year consolidated plan and annual action plan, specifically as they relate to either changing community development needs, housing and affordable housing and homeless needs, within the community, whether things are changing on the ground, how they're changing, how priorities that the city should be focusing on moving forward, that sort of thing. So again, we want to reserve the majority of the time for that discussion. So what exactly is a HUD 5-year consolidated plan? A HUD 5-year consolidated plan is required for all HUD funding, and they're specifically related to how the city plans and prioritizes the use of the CDBG home and ESG priority programs. The program year, as I said, will cover fiscal year, the program year October 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2028. And what HUD requires in the consolidated plan is a number of things. And you can see on the screen there, we're required to do in-depth stakeholder consultation, and that includes these sessions with the general public. So we have, again, we're having meetings, as was mentioned earlier, in each of the council districts this week, and I think on the 27th is the final one. But we're also going to, in the month of April, and you'll see as we get on here what that's gonna be, but we're gonna have a stakeholder consultation session with all the key stakeholders within the city that either implement or deal with community development issues, homelessness issues, affordable housing issues. And the idea is to get input from stakeholders as well as the general public, such as yourselves, on what the needs are within the community. We're also going to be preparing a housing and homeless needs assessment, and that's really that and the housing market analysis are really the data behind the consolidated plan. And really that is derived from some basic information that HUD provides us through census in the IDIS template, 5-year consolidated plan template. But we go back and supplement that data that HUD has provided in the IDIS 5-year template with information that we get locally from any local reports, any information that we get on these types of housing market conditions or housing market analysis. And again, we supplement that to again get a very clear picture of what those needs are from a data perspective. And then again, the key piece of the 5-year consolidated plan, after we understand what the information that we derive from the consultation process and the data analysis, is we want to use that information to help and help the city formulate its strategic plan, or basically its local funding priorities for the next 5 years. And again, the city can't fund activities if it doesn't meet a high priority need within the 5-year strategic plan. And then ultimately, each of the 5 years, the city is required to prepare what we call an annual action plan. And basically that describes which activities the city is proposing to address high priority needs in the strategic plan each of the 5 years of the consolidated plan. For this specific planning process, we're going to be, in addition to preparing the 5-year consolidated plan, we're also going to be preparing a annual action plan for the period of October 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2024. And then just a statement on schedule. We must submit, the city does not have a choice. We must submit this plan to HUD no later than August 15th, 2023, so that it does not lose its federal funding. And we will guarantee that it happens, and you'll see a little bit later the schedule to get us to that point so that we can submit this plan to HUD. This just kind of reiterates what I was saying, the consolidated plan. Every 5 years, the city has to complete a new consolidated plan, the current priorities, goals, and objectives for how they use their federal funds. And the current plan, as I said previously, is for that the city is currently using is fiscal year 2018 to 2022. And again, every year the city prepares an annual action plan that describes how it intends to spend its annual allocation of funds. And again, this will be focused, this year's annual plan will be focused on fiscal year 2024, program year 2023. So just a little bit of context, so you have a sense of where the city 5 years ago believed their high priorities to be based on, again, the same sort of process, stakeholder process and data that we obtained through the planning process. So as you can see on the screen there, the city's high priority needs included increasing affordable housing for those at 0 to 30% of AMI. The types of activities that they carried out to address that goal was housing rehabilitation, funding a home buyer program, and emergency housing repair program, funding an emergency housing repair program. Additionally, public facilities and infrastructure improvements was a high priority. and activities to address that need included sidewalk improvement, accessibility improvements of both streets and curbs, curb improvement, and street improvements. And then the next one was blight removal. It was a high priority, and this activity that was funded to address some of the blight in the city over the last 5 years was demolition. And then specifically with your ESG funds, the city was prioritizing addressing the needs of the homelessness, and that included supporting homeless efforts, as well as providing emergency shelter operational support through its ESG funding to local organizations that address homelessness. And then finally, public services. The city prioritized code enforcement, senior services, and broadband connectivity. And then finally, administration and planning resources to help the city carry out these projects and these activities, as well as stay in compliance with HUD. So what did the city fund in program year 2022's annual action plan, which is currently being implemented by the city? This current program year, the city has allocated CDBG program funding, as you can see there, to those 5 activities that include home repair program, utility assistance, costs for staffing related to code enforcement, senior meal truck and generator services, as well as program administration and delivery. The home program, which is a sister program to this CDBG program related to affordable housing. The city has funded programs that included the single family housing rehabilitation program, affordable rental housing construction to create units for those that are 0 to 30% of AMI. They funded tenant-based rental assistance. They provided funding for homeownership, a program for new construction, and those funds, that activity was carried out by Habitat for Humanity, and there was administration funds as well to help implement these activities. And then finally, under the Emergency Solutions Grant Program, these funds went to the city's emergency shelter assistance for homeless families, and specifically 2 organizations received funding for operation, and that included Corpus Christi House and Salvation Army, and that is again including administration to carry out that program. So as I said in my opening remarks, the goal here is to really use that information that you can see what the city has funded previously over the last 5 years and the last year. But our challenge today and moving forward, again, this is the beginning part of this process, is to really think about and how to determine the consolidated plan 5-year priorities, the priorities for the plan for the next 5 years. And in order to do that, I just wanted to kind of provide a little bit more context to the CP plan development process. So as I said, indicated earlier, we're trying to get input from community development and housing needs from these council district meetings. As I said, also, we're going to be carrying out input from local stakeholders who serve persons who are low and moderate income, again, at or below 80% of AMI. We haven't formally scheduled those sessions yet, but they'll be in April, probably early April this year. And then we're also going to have input from a community survey that will be conducted in April and May. And again, we will alert everybody and the general public when that survey becomes live. It'll most likely be on the city's website, and it'll be in both Spanish and English. And we would encourage folks to take that survey. The idea, again, using all this information to help the city prioritize its goals and objectives. And then finally, we'll be using updated demographic data from the census and/or HUD as in the IDIS HUD 5-year CP template. Again, the idea is the data and the input from the stakeholders, from the general public, and from the survey all help to inform the city in terms of when they determine, to help them determine what their priorities for needs are, high priority needs are moving forward over the next 5 years. Just a little bit on the schedule. The city will be accepting applications for its federal funding programs. They will be sent out on April 1st, and they will be due back to the city by May 1st. The city will draft a 5-year consolidated plan and annual action plan. It is required to be on public display for a period of 30 days. And as of today, the city anticipates the plan will be on public display for comment beginning on June 19th. And it'll be on display through July 17th, 2023. Sorry, excuse me. The reason for that is we have to conduct a second public hearing in order to comply with the HUD regulations on this. And the idea is we are going to elicit public comments on that draft 5-year plan and annual action plan during those 30 days. And then we'll also have a general public hearing sometime in mid-July. We will advertise that and let the public know when that's going to be, obviously for the general public to come and provide any comments that they may have on the 5-year plan activities and the 5-year plan priorities. And then finally, the idea is that the city council will have to approve this no later than the end of July. And again, we cannot miss the August 15th submission date to HUD. So once council approves that, we will most likely submit the 5-year plan and annual action plan to HUD in that first week of August so that there's no delay in getting the funds to the city. So HUD has released its 2023 allocations for the city. So for program year 2023 program funding allocations for the city, as you can see, and I think they were alluded to by Tracy earlier, the city will receive a little over 2.6 million in CDBG funds, a little over 1.3 million in home dollars, and 235,549 in emergency solution grant funds. So again, just to provide some basics on the CDBG home and ESG program, just some general guidelines for the CDBG program. So the city can only fund eligible CDBG activities, and those, as you can see on the screen, include housing rehabilitation, homeownership assistance, public facilities and improvements, blight removal, which generally includes demolition of blighted structures, or funding for code enforcement and staffing for code enforcement, economic development initiatives that benefit low to moderate income persons, acquisition and or disposition of real property, and public services. Public services is capped at 15% of the overall allocation every year. And as I just said, you can see generally what CDBG public services include. I won't list those, I won't go down each of those, but you can see on the screen. And as I said, the city is only able to provide up to 15% of its CDBG grant allocation for funding these types of public services each year. It cannot exceed 15%. Not only does it have the CDBG activity have to be an eligible activity, but it also must meet at least one of the following 3 national objectives. So those national objectives include benefiting low to moderate income persons. And it's key to note that at least 75% of the grant must go towards benefiting low to moderate income persons. No more than 30% of the grant can go to prevent or eliminate blight, i.e. demolition, and or meeting an urgent need that is very rarely used, the urgent need that's saved for health and welfare or threatened, or a hurricane or something has blown through where you need immediate help. But it's generally benefiting low to moderate income people, or preventing or eliminating blight is the 2 key primary national objectives in order to meeting the national objective. So what are some eligible costs? You can see that under admin, the city can provide funding for staff and personnel, materials and supplies, communication, office and facility rentals, or lease costs. But we also got to pay attention to what some of the things that are ineligible, and that would be including fundraising, political activities, expenses to carry out regular responsibilities of the local government, income payments, building or portion thereof used for general conduct of government, like City Hall, purchase of equipment and fixtures. And again, all these are just examples. They're not a representative of all ineligible costs, but I just wanted to give you a sample of what some of the key ones are. So again, the Home Investment Partnerships Program, or HOME, that is the sister program to CDBG. The key difference is that it focuses on addressing and providing funding for affordable housing creation, rehabilitation for persons who are up to 80% of the area median income. Eligible activities, as you can see on the screen, include housing rehabilitation, homeownership assistance, new construction of affordable housing, both rental and or for sale, and then tenant-based rental assistance. Just a key note here. In addition, the other requirement under the home program is that a minimum required set aside of 15% of each home allocation each year must be set aside for what we call CHODOs, Community Housing Development Organizations. They're community-based special nonprofits that focus on affordable housing. And they include a very prescribed board of, their board of directors is comprised of community residents and must meet certain income criteria in order to qualify. But at least a minimum of 15% each year must be allocated towards these special nonprofit organizations. And then finally, the Emergency Solutions Grant Program. These funds are specifically dedicated to helping address homelessness within the community. And so, as you can see, the eligible activities under the ESG program includes funds for street outreach, homeless prevention, operations of emergency shelters or other types of shelters, rapid rehousing assistance, HMIS, which is the documentation system in terms of which folks are included in the HMIS reports in terms of how they're being benefiting and meeting the homelessness requirements, and then administrative activities. So that concludes my overview of the program. I'm going to stop sharing for the time being. And I'm going to, actually, I should show you one last slide. That's the contacts again. I think that was talked about a little bit earlier. And so you can see Tracy and Letitia's contact information. So I'm going to, at this point, stop sharing. And I would like to ask if there is any questions that people have on the overall programs, on the actual activities, eligibility, anything related to the presentation we just provided. Be happy to.
Come on up here just so everybody can hear you and make sure we are being recorded.
At the beginning of your presentation, you were talking about data points, and these data points is how the federal government determines how much money that we should get. How do you get these data points? Are they the PIT count? I heard you mention the census. Where do you get these data points?
So just to be clear, there's two separate things that we're talking about. So the city's allocation of its federal resources, CDBG, home, and ESG, is determined by an internal formula that HUD uses based on population, income, poverty. We don't know that actual formula which determines the actual allocation amounts. They differ every year based on the amount of funds allocated for these programs nationally. But related to when we create our priorities and our the data in the actual documents, it's a combination of pre-populated chart that HUD uses via the census document. Allows us to get specific data that we then supplement in the 5-year plan.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, it answered it. So from what I am understanding, it's kind of like the federal government kind of tells us what to do, right? All right, awesome, thank you.
Doesn't tell you what to do, but it tells you what the amount of allocation that you have of each of these programs.
All right, thank you, Bill. I did fail to mention that earlier that we do have, the podium up here for questions, but if you need assistance, and can't come up to the podium, we can bring a microphone to you. So we do have that option available as well. Just wanted to make sure everybody understood that. So are there any additional questions regarding the presentation?
Can I just ask a follow-up?
Sure, please. Come on up.
So just to follow up on what Mari just asked, I was just wondering, as far as these data points for future 5-year plans, is there anything that other local groups can do to ensure that their data is taken into account, especially with the ESG funding?
Yes, absolutely. So just so a note, I know you, either you or the previous person mentioned the point in time count. We are required to incorporate the point in time data into this document when we're preparing it. But we would also encourage any local studies that you have done, that your organizations have done, nonprofits have done, anything related to homelessness, studies that organizations have done to show what that need is. That may be a deeper dive than we may have from the census. We would absolutely encourage you to get that to us so that we can incorporate that into the data analysis portion of the document.
All right. Thank you, Bill. So, again, anyone have questions regarding the presentation before we move on? Okay. Ms. Sylvia?
Well, actually, Bill, I think this question is probably be to our staff here. Like, how do we refer people to these programs? Like, we need to know what numbers do they call? I mean, what organizations do they call? Do you, I mean, like, to qualify for some of these programs?
I'm going to ask Leticia to come up. And
Okay.
She can give you.
Thank you.
So agencies that are funded through us for any of the HUD funding programs, when we post a notice of funding availability, they will produce to us what they can do, what their capacity is, and what programs they're going to structure for the funding. And so then we get those, we analyze them, we rate them, and then we prepare them into the actual plan. That'll be the plan that will be up for 30-day public comment period. But also the social service agencies, we do have a list of folks that we work with, especially when it comes down to consultations for several of our HUD fund dollars. And depending what that criteria is and when we apply, and we can share that with you as well. For this specific one, feedback, the citizen participation plan calls for citizens and then also stakeholders, which would be your social service agencies, anybody that provides services for the folks that meet this criteria.
I just think that it would be helpful if a list of those entities, those organizations would be listed on the website or whatever information is quickly, so that do you have that already?
Yes, we have a link for resources that's on, I'm sorry. So yes, a list of those resources is provided on it's the city's website, but then if you go to the neighborhood services webpage, then, there are those links that are provided, and it's listed as resources. And so that lists the number of our service providers. Okay. All right. All right. Any other questions regarding the presentation before we move on? Yes, sir.
I can probably speak loud enough that you can hear me.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, why is the city paying for demo of properties when should the homeowners or whoever
Property pay for the demolition?
There is a demo grant that's available, and it's specifically in those CDBG eligible areas. So those low to moderate income areas, there is an application process. So the individual has to apply and meet that criteria, and they can receive a grant, a demolition grant to demolish that home, or at no cost to them. And so this is to assist those residents that meet that criteria of that low to moderate income threshold. And so that's where that's for. That's not necessarily the city taking those funds and just random houses. This is an application process, and it is to address substandard structures, but in that meet that criteria.
So that grant money is only given to a low income person that owns this house that needs to be demolished. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
May I ask a question loudly from the audience?
You may, or we can provide you with a mic if we think we need to. Okay, all right, sure, please do.
Homelessness and bike lanes.
Many of the people I serve who are homeless are on bicycles. The bike lanes around here, gosh, are dangerous at best for people riding bicycles. Can some of this money be applied towards bike lanes and improving transportation for people throughout the city?
Yeah, that would be considered an infrastructure improvement, similar to what was done with sidewalks. So I believe it could be applied in in that regard in the same manner.
So is that a plan that we've got now so that we can actually put money towards? Is that included?
Well, and that's what we're trying to ask from the community. This is to give you that opportunity to give us some feedback, give us that input on the things that you believe are our needs for our community, and specifically, meeting, our homeless individuals or just anyone that choose to use, bicycles for transportation and providing those safe lanes.
To and from work.
Yes, ma'am.
To and from school. So
How many do I need to mean that, or do I need to fill out a form to say that, or?
Yeah, we will take that into consideration. We're recording it. We have staff that are making notes, and we do have some notepads on the tables as well. But if if you're speaking out loud, we'll take down that information and put that in the notes for the assessment. Okay. Bill, were you gonna? Yes.
Can I just add one thing to that? That's absolutely true what you said in terms of the street improvements. One caveat to that is that any improvements made to streets, including bike lanes, would have to primarily benefit low to moderate income persons or neighborhoods and taken into account the service area. So I just want to make sure that the benefit has to also be taken into consideration. Who's going to benefit from that improvement? So just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Yes, Councilman.
Well, one other thing I wanted to suggest that somebody else threw out there was, a lot of the, homes that are left out, abandoned or whatever, it's normally because there is no will, it's held in limbo. And it's difficult for the city to, to contact the owner, because, maybe they've died and they haven't left a will. Have y'all ever pursued, like, title clearing, something like that, that could help, yeah.
We actually figured that into our website, area notice.
Okay.
So maybe working to planning.
Yeah, I was going to say, we have discussed that with the planning department and something that we are exploring because, through code enforcement, of course, that this is where we typically would identify these abandoned structures, and going through the title search on that, where you find where the owner is deceased and perhaps they have multiple heirs. But none of those heirs have an interest in the property. They don't want to have anything to do with it. And so we've got to take it through that process. But like I said, we have been discussing that possibility of exploring that title clearing. So great point.
How close are we?
And it's right now we're just exploring. We know it's an idea, and so it's something we're writing down. So. Yes. It's in the works. So I guess we go ahead and proceed. Like I said, at this point, if anyone has some input or feedback for us, like I said, that's the purpose of this meeting, is to make sure that you have that opportunity. So yes, ma'am. We're gonna cut you off at 7 p.m.
I'm kidding. Well, seriously, 3 minutes or
You got them right.
Thank you very much, our city councilwoman, and staff for having this opportunity. And my name is Judy Telge. I live at 3554 Santa Fe Street. I'm in, I think, one of the greatest districts in Corpus Christi. District 2 is diverse. It's amazing, the number and differences and the getting along that happens in our district. And I'm sure there's more districts like that in Corpus Christi, but I'm pretty partial to mine. So welcome, Sylvia, to being council person. I'd like to pick up on that diversity to make sure that in this next 5-year plan, we're going to make sure that lowest income people who are totally unable to access good, decent, affordable, accessible homes whether it's rental or home owned, but primarily rental, has to happen if we're going to see a decrease in homelessness in the city, if we're going to see an increase in people enjoying quality of life and children going to good schools and families staying together. It's critical that we put priority, especially through the home program. That's one of the most flexible federal programs there is for affordable housing. It does so much, not just building homes or rehabilitating homes, but also providing voucher or subsidies that people can take and help integrate communities. Lower income people can go to higher income neighborhoods and be able to rent a home that's for rent, a naturally occurring affordable house, or they can go into an affordable housing multifamily complex. Those vouchers, I'm happy to say the city has been very good about funding the tenant-based rental assistance program. Two of my organizations happen to be the only two that have gone after that funding, but the numbers of people that it can help do a 2-year entry into affordability, accessibility, and all the things that they need to be able to go on to permanent housing is just amazing. We don't do an awful lot of people a year because we're small organizations, but it makes a big difference when the city, our local community, our public officials, and our citizens accept the fact that we've got to prioritize lower income citizens to be able to access housing. So the tenant-based rental assistance is good. Putting home funding into building new rental housing for people 30% area median income and below is critical. We put that in as a priority last time, the 5-year consolidated plan, and it's just got to continue for us to be able to make a dent in the needs. We need also nonprofit, mission-driven developers. We don't have developers in this community that are interested in building apartment complexes. They don't have to be huge, they can be small. Doing some what they call middle housing. That is, they're not the big McMansions on the one end, and they're not public housing on the other. They're in the middle. There's a variety of housing that can be done, and I would love to see the city in this 5-year projection look at taking the other resources the city has access to and leverage the HUD money, leverage your, what is it? B Corp, A Corp, whatever it is, B Corp. That funding and other funding. There's opportunities with some businesses to put some money into affordable housing and decreasing homelessness that occurs, whether people are at risk or actually in homelessness. So I see a great opportunity. I'm excited. And I'm sure that staff is hopefully going to go in that direction and take our comments to do where the greatest need is. Thank you.
All right, we have any other, anybody want to provide input or some feedback regarding this? Yes, ma'am.
I wonder if we could get a little clarification on the accessibility that he mentioned, accessibility improvement, curb and sidewalk, and what are the parameters for that? And just a couple of follow-up questions. Is it included with street repairs that exist right now, or is this set?
And how is that funded and how much is earmarked for that?
Bill talks, okay. Bill, can you add any clarification on this? I know it's not specific to our city, but I mean,
Yes.
Can you add anything?
Yes, generally, ideally, I don't know how you carry it out and implement it in the city of Corpus Christi, but generally, ideally, if you're working collectively with your public works department, when streets are being redone within the community, that they carry out curb cuts that are ADA accessible, and making sure that they're doing those each and every time that they do a actual street improvement project within the city, so that they're able to increase the number of accessible curbs and sidewalks across the city. And again, I don't know how you all do it internally there, but that's generally how it operates nationally.
Well, I brought it up because he mentioned it.
Right.
And so my question is, so is this funding, can it be included in the street upgrade repairs for that? Does this HUD funding come in there?
Leverage. Okay. I mean, yeah, from what I'm understanding is that the city, we can leverage CDBG funding, and it would work in conjunction with what Public Works would be doing for street improvements and repairs. So as you mentioned, those curb cuts and ramps, and I believe that is, an eligible activity, and it would work in conjunction with what the city is already doing for those, those infrastructure improvements is how I'm understanding it.
That's
Hope
correct.
that answers your question, but.
I don't know how would
Okay.
that work, because if it's, you're getting the HUD money and then we're bringing it back to the city, is that?
Well, and like we have done it in the past as far as those sidewalk improvements, and so that funding was leveraged for that through the city. I believe the same way that other departments would leverage that funding for other improvements. So it would work in a similar fashion. I think we probably need to make sure that we research this a little bit better, but we know that it has happened in the past. And so I apologize that I'm not articulating it as good as I should. Alvin, why don't you come on up? Okay, all right, you be like, okay.
It would be basically a interdepartmental, traffic engineering, because CDBG funds can't be used to supplant. So if they already have funding for this particular activity, you can't use CDBG funds to supplant that money. So it would basically be like a gap. It would fill that gap.
And they're doing their street repairs and have their plans together, and let's say a low income area is involved with the greater picture, then they can use CDBG funds to fill that gap and do the repairs in that low income area. Because it has to benefit a low to moderate income area. It can't be used just throughout the city, because the whole city is not low to moderate income.
It would have to be in those eligible areas, and similar to what we talked about with the demolition, it has to be applied in those.
How do you know if your neighborhood qualifies? For instance, my street. My neighborhood, because the neighborhoods, the streets that are around where I live are horrible, but I don't know, I know they evaluate the streets, but they don't evaluate the sidewalks. So you're saying that sidewalks could qualify without the street, right? Without fixing the street. Sidewalk.
It's better to look for those projects where, let's say the city has to fix the street.
Yeah.
And the sidewalks are bad, then they can use CDBG funding to take care of the sidewalks and while they're fixing the streets.
Yeah, but according to the plans from the city, like the street, for example, the street, it doesn't qualify, not in the next 5 years for sure, because we're not on that. But we could use sidewalks, because there's no sidewalks.
Yeah, we've done a sidewalk project over on Sunnybrook Road that previously had no sidewalks there, and we leveraged CDBG to put sidewalks.
Okay, I'm not gonna do it on my street, I'm just saying. But there's a lot of streets, that I've walked on that have no sidewalks, and I'm like, wow, that is, so dangerous, so. Yeah, imagine being homeless. Yeah.
Could I just add one thing to that, one clarifying point to that? when we look at that, we have to make sure that we take into account the service area of that improvement. So even though the street or sidewalk might be in a low mod neighborhood, if it's just a long or a major thoroughfare or a major sidewalk that connects other parts of the city, that wouldn't necessarily qualify because it's serving more than just low mod income persons. So we really got to look at both service area as well as low mod areas when we make decisions.
And just to add to that, the CDBG areas are determined by census tracts. And so that information, yes, census tracts and then the block groups as well. It actually incorporates the block group itself. And so you may have a census tract that is fully eligible because all of the block groups in that census tract meet that low to moderate income eligibility. And then you may have some census tracts where 1 and 3 block group are eligible, but block group 2 is not. And so that's looked at, that's available through, the HUD site, but we also have that information on our website. We have the maps and, staff uses that as we're looking to apply those funding. Yeah. Okay. All right. And who do we have? Yes, sir.
I just have a comment regarding like refurbishing or new builds, any money that I think that whenever you do
for refurbishing or retrofit, that you should take out all gas out of the house for multiple reasons. One is because electricity is much more efficient, and these low-income people, we want to keep their utility bills low. And then the other thing is because it's not healthy, like 42% increase in childhood asthma for homes that have natural gas stoves, for example. And also it helps the air quality for everybody else. So I think all the money should go to all electric houses, and there'd be very efficient houses, good low E glass, insulation, properly designed, and then also low water use, like 1 gallon per flush toilets, maybe dual flush toilets, sink aerators, low flow shower heads. The whole thing should be set up to save that person money in utilities, because that'll give them more money to deal with what they're dealing with, and they're already low income.
Yes, sir.
So we want, if there's enough money to put solar on their house so they have 0 electric bill, that's even better, because that's just one less bill that they have to pay, one less hurdle that they have to go through.
Very good points. Appreciate that. Yes.
Add on to that,
Sure. Yes.
I'd also like to think about the need using Xeriscape or
Some lawn material, ground covering that's not water intensive for people, because it's got to be tough to think, what am I going to do if I'm going to pay bills and your water bill, or you're going to have a dry, dead lawn. So we can start at the beginning to fix that maybe.
That I saw a hand over here.
yeah.
Actually, I have some notes right here. Okay, awesome. Hello, my name is Marilena Garza, and I live in the best part of Corpus, which is District 1, so District 1 is where it's at. So they don't have postcards about District 2, they got postcards about District 1. So just a little bit about me. I founded a nonprofit here called the Free Store Corpus Christi, and our mission statement is to provide precious resources for people who are experiencing extreme poverty. And extreme poverty looks different. It could be a college student who's living in a car. It could be a woman who is fleeing domestic violence and she doesn't want to go to the shelter because he's going to find me there. It could be the Social Security recipient who I spent all my money on rent. How am I supposed to eat for the rest of the month? So it looks different. It's not just the typical drunk homeless person that you see on the corner and the guy who's taking a dump on your sidewalk. So there's so many things that I could talk about, with my nonprofit just last year, we helped over 938 people. In our lifetime, we've helped over 2,500 people with different types of resources. It could be shoes on their feet. It could be groceries in their fridge. It's that point A, so we can get them to point B and C. And unfortunately, the city is talking about point E, F, and G. So how are people supposed to get into a house when I'm drunk on the corner and I don't even have shoes? And I don't even know what time of day it is. So one of the things that is super disturbing as a person who does outreach, I don't spend much time, if at any at all, behind a desk. You'll find me underneath an underpass, talking to our friends, in a ditch, at a shelter, and I listen because I can tell them what they need to do, but I want to learn, how did you get into this position that you're crapping on the sidewalk? Like, I don't think anybody wakes up and dreams of doing that. So why are you doing this? How are you here? And how can I help you get beyond point A and then beyond point C? And they can do B, C, D. They can do it on their own. They're adults. They're more than capable, but they need help with point A and B. So one of the point A's is the emergency shelters, or the lack of emergency shelters. 3 times this month, it's been under 50 degrees. And we live in Corpus. It's always windy. I'm sure you guys were getting wet today, walking in and out of your homes and things like that. Yesterday, it was cold, it was raining, and there was no emergency shelters. There never is. Emergency shelters usually only get triggered whenever we're freezing. And when I have the mayor gloating and boasting that, oh, we can add all these emergency mats to the Salvation Army, nobody wants to sleep on a mat. These people would rather sleep in a dumpster during a hurricane like in Harvey than go to these emergency shelters. A lot of them tell me, I don't want to go to that emergency shelter. There's no food, there's no drink, there's a bunch of crazy people in a confined space. There's no control, there's no fresh clothes for these people. It's like we forget that they're human beings. People need food, people need water. You know, we're doing the pit count. I was involved in the pit count. And we were told that we were going to get these hygiene kits in order to talk to our people, and we received nothing. Thank goodness I'm the founder of this nonprofit because I was able to provide coffee, hygiene, medical supplies, resources like this is where you can go to get a meal. Most people don't know where to get a meal. The city doesn't provide any meals. They're relying on nonprofits to do the job of the city. And it's horrendous. You know, these are people. These are our community members. I don't see them as clients. I don't see them as data points. I see that as my neighbor. I see that as my brother. That is my sister. And I would die if my brother and sister were out in the cold and in the rain, hungry with no shoes. And that's what I see every day. Every day I'm getting calls. Where do I send this person? The shelters have been full since before COVID. And the city just continues to pile it onto the Salvation Army. And I kind of think that maybe you're doing that so that when it doesn't work out, you can blame the Salvation Army. The city needs to step up. And I don't think any of us in this room would have wanted to spend more than an hour outside yesterday. And everyone, all of my friends did. I'm tired of walking up to my friends, people who, they're well over their 70s, shivering in the cold. And me giving them a blanket and saying, I wish you the best of luck. I wish there was more I could do. I wish I could put you up in a hotel room and get you the medical care that you deserve and need. But I can't. I'm only one person. And I've got, you know, it feels like the city is working against me. We're talking about sidewalks and things like that. And I understand that those are really important, but people are dying outside. Children are unclothed, unfed, coming up to me during the street outreach. And what am I supposed to do? I've got runaways walking up to me, you know, don't call the cops, don't tell anybody that I'm here. How is it that a 31-year-old Latina nobody is able to connect the dots, call judges, call places, and connect the dots for the people that are responsible for doing this are not doing it? So just to, recap, we need better emergency shelters. The ones that we have are pathetic and disappointing. If max on the floor is the best that you can do, sounds like we need to get better people in those positions. The pit count is always skewed. I participated in the pit count this year. When you send a lot of people out there that just sit behind a desk, they're scared to walk up to these people.
I'm not. I could probably walk out here right now and probably find one of my friends and be like, hey, what's going on? I don't think any of the people in the homelessness service or the neighborhood development can do that. I think they'd be scared walking up to some of my friends. So we need to do better. We need to be aware of humanistic needs that these people have. They're never going to get housed if they have an empty stomach and bare feet. So I hope everyone appreciates their warm homes, their vehicles, and all that good stuff, because my friends don't have any of that. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We have reached our, it's a little after 7, but if there's anybody else who has an input or some feedback for us, we'd like to hear that. But we do also have, again, the notepads. We provided you with contact information for the city, some email addresses, so that you can also send that information if you think of something after the meeting today. So we do appreciate you being here. I'd like to invite our councilwoman, Sylvia Campos, up to make some closing remarks. And then, so get you up here. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to make a suggestion before we adjourn.
Okay.
That these meetings be advertised, announced on TV weeks before. Please, we had just sat down to eat our dinner. Honey, the meeting, you know, and it's like, I'm sorry, how do we know if there's no power times now? And I mean, but, or give us a link or tell us where we can go to be informed.
Yes, ma'am. So we are hearing that, and we do advertise ahead of time, but we will look at ways that we can improve that communication and get the information out sooner. So there's more time to prepare to come to the meeting. So appreciate that comment. Yes, ma'am.
And with that, no, seriously, I hear you, because I'm sorry, but that was my complaint as well. We need to do a better job. And hopefully, you know, we've got a couple of more days, even if you're not in that same district, still take advantage if we can get it out. Guys, y'all have your work cut out to do. I don't know what you have to do, rent an airplane, shoot some stuff, I don't know. But, you know, send out some massive emails. I don't know, but we do. Yeah.
Veterans Focus Program, he's got a great program, you know, he's counseling and the veterans, and every day he talks about a veteran. Why don't we have something on the city's side, someone from the city, at least once a week, giving an update?
Actually, she brings up a good point. A lot of cities have like a newsletter you can sign up for. And once a week, you get a letter from the mayor, and it tells you all the activities, all the meetings, all the public content that's going on. And if something special's going on, you get an extra one. But then everybody can sign up, and then at least once a week, you know everything that's going on.
I love that idea. Yes. All right. Well, y'all be safe. Thank you so much for attending. And please tell your friends and neighbors to attend the other ones that are coming up. And I think we've got them, I don't know, somewhere, right? The next dates, the next places to share. So it's going to be tomorrow, and y'all want to announce them? Go ahead.
So our next meeting is tomorrow at 6 o'clock. It's going to be at the Choke Canyon Conference Room, which is where the water department there on Holly and Civitan. And so that's tomorrow's meeting will be held there. Thank you all. Thank you for coming. We do appreciate your time. You know, you took time out of your day and away from your family to come and speak with us today. So we do appreciate you.
Thank you.